Hello everyone, welcome on in. It's Betting Weekly Dojo, episode number 11 of our new podcast. And I'm delighted to say, on a Tuesday morning, or it's afternoon at the moment now, I'm delighted to say joining me as he is every week is my co-host, and he's in a different part of the country every week. He's a guest where Channers is this week. And like I say, it's a professional gambler and our co-host here on the Dojo, it is Neil Channing. Where are you now this week?
Devon, Nigel. I'm actually hoping. How many weeks have we got now till Christmas? I'm hoping we get to Blackpool soon. Little in joke for you, you dancing fans.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you'll be up there cheering on your man. We'll come on to that in a minute. So this week you are in the beautiful part of the UK, down in Devon. You got a couple of more moves before we get into Christmas. It's raining. It's lovely here. It's beautiful.
Rainy. Well, it's actually got a bit brighter now, but it's poured it down today. Terrible, really.
Terrible weather. And, well, the weather is... You don't mind me having much luck with the weather, but you're certainly having some luck with the Strictly. Doing well. Your man, Chris McCausland, gave us 2 weeks ago minus 110, 10 to 11, around about even money with some spots at the time. Now, short was minus 350 with some bookmakers, minus $3.
Yeah, and actually people were asking me before last week, they'd bet him at even money. And before last week, it was down to I think it was minus 150. And a few people said to me, we can take a profit already. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm going in again. I think the minus 150 was perhaps an even better bet. And a guy texted me just before this week's show, and he said, thanks for that. I think we got the price right and job done. And I said, no, it's not job done. Like, he's still, I think it was still minus, I don't know what he was about, minus 165 or something like that. And I said, no, I think minus 225 was the price, really. And I think they're still wrong. So I have been more on, Nigel. I've been pressing and pressing.
This is what I love to hear.
But he's minus $3 now.
Well, the best price here is minus 225. If you can get it, minus $3 is the general price. There is a bit of minus 225. You can get it, but I
should go and get some of that. That minus 225. That looks.
I think you've got to get some of that. I think he's minus $5. That dance last
he
dance.
Actually,
you were texting me through it.
Him, but for people that don't watch this show or maybe are on the other side of the Atlantic, the way it works is that the people dance. So it's a celebrity and a professional dancer. And they get scored by the judges in the studio. But then ultimately the winner of the contest is decided by the public phoning in, which is partly why I think this guy will win, because he's just really popular with the public and people really like him. But he hasn't actually done that well with the studio judges since we bet him. But I think people have started to realise there's not too many people that can win it. And he's so good. But, of course, they always have, after they get the winner, which I think happens probably about the middle of December, we find out who wins it. They film a Christmas show where they do a bunch of dancing. And what they ought to do for the Christmas show is blindfold all the other contestants. That would make it much more fun, I think. What a great Christmas show that would be.
That would be a good Christmas show. Yes, bear in mind, Chris McCausland is the dancer we're talking about here on Strictly Come Dancing. He's dancing on Stars stateside, and he's actually blind, and what he's doing is incredible. But I think the judges are being a bit harsh because they don't want to give him extra points. They've voted him purely and simply on his dancing rather than what he's achieving with his blindness, and that is what winning him over on the public, as well as being a really good guy, a really funny guy, and incredible performance. And he is minus 225, best price, minus $3. But I think Chandler's has got Christmas paid for this year, and a Christmas money next year as well with your bets.
Thank heavens.
Last week we
this year will be
last week. Have you ever had a good Christmas? You think, this bet's paid for Christmas. You say people say, I'll give you a bet pays for Christmas. Has it ever paid for Christmas?
Yeah. Well, Christmas has traditionally been quite a good time for me because I've always been an NFL fan, and the end of the regular season comes about then. So normally you've got something to cheer on in one of the divisions or something like that. I haven't really done any long-term NFL this year, not very much anyway. But I do like a nice Christmas bet. They used to do a lot more in the UK, didn't they? They used to bet on the top TV show of Christmas, which would get the most viewers. And the Christmas number one was a huge market when people used to go out and actually buy vinyl records. Which one would be the number one seller for Christmas? That's less of a thing now, isn't it? I don't know. You like those kind of things. Have you got one for
I used to love it. It's always the winner of the X Factor or a charity record, or the last few years it's been the father and the mother. Sorry, the husband and wife who done sausage rolls, whatever they called it. Changed the words. I can't remember what they called. Lad baby, something like that. They've won it for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But I worked at the Racing Post back in the day. And my job was to write a Christmas. We're going off piece there a little bit, but my job was to write a Christmas betting article for Christmas. And there was no internet in those days, nothing. And I had to go down to the record shop and buy all the top 20 singles and listen to the top 20 singles. And I come back because you couldn't really download them. You never knew the single till it come on a single format. I heard it on the radio. I went back and I heard Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You. And I said to the sports editor, Derek McGovern, this is the best bet you'll ever get. It was about 2 to 1.
What price was
the best bet ever. And 2 to 1 it was. And it never got Christmas number one.
Who won it that year?
It never got Christmas one that year. I can't remember, but I'm going to find out. Well, when you come on the next subject, I'll find out. Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas was never Christmas number one, which was
unbelievable.
And Last Christmas by Wham was never Christmas number one too.
Yeah, that was number 2, wasn't
Christmas
it?
hits. Number 2, yeah. I think Mr. Blobby or something. Was it Mr. Blobby? Might have done
always
it. I can't remember. But anyway, we're going
and novelty records. I used to always win it. So annoying.
Yeah, and when they say to you, "I've got a bet for Christmas, and this will pay for Christmas," I used to say to them, "It's got to be a big bet because there's 4 brothers and sisters." We've got 17 nieces and nephews. We've got a big extended family. So it's not like I'm an only child and this will pay for Christmas.
Year,
You've got to get me a
everyone's
really
got,
big bet to
everyone's
pay
been
for the
given a
seat.
piece of coal at a chestnut.
That's a good Christmas in our house. That was the ones we can remember. They were the happy days. Last week we gave the bet of the week, and it was from me, and I gave a Spanish angle on the golf. I think I always got it right because Campillo was leading all the way, got beat in a playoff. And he had a good run for us.
Did you watch it? I think did it go to like the 8th playoff?
I gave up. I gave up. I was following it on. I was following it on Flash Score, and I was under the impression Campillo won it, but I got pretty lucky really because I told you all to bet this and oppose John Rahm, and it was in a completely different golf course that I thought it was going to be played at. So we got quite lucky. Really. So always do your research, kids. Always make sure you do your research.
Rahm, though, wasn't he? I mean, he has kind of slightly gone, really. Sad, really. Anyway, go on. What do we want to talk about this week?
Still pretty six. What do you think? Before we go on, have you got any angles this week? Anything caught your attention?
There's 2. The problem is we record this early in the week, and I do most of my bets at the weekend. Really, I tend to not really get too involved. We did talk about the election on a previous podcast, and I think the danger with that is that I'm trading in and out quite a lot. I've totally switched my position around. I'm with Donald Trump now. I got out of Kamala Harris about a week ago. And I've reversed it and gone with Trump, but I think I'll probably close out altogether before the actual day. I've been really working hard actually on ready for the in running because I think people get carried away on the night and they get very enthusiastic. The market's moving one way and the other because of very small bits of news. There's loads of recency bias. So I've started studying all the counties in the swing states that. Looking through and seeing how much Biden won this particular district by and how much Trump won it by in 2016 so that I've got something to compare it with on the night. That's hard work for you, Nigel. That's dedication.
That's proper. That's probably not like some guesser who's giving you a golf tip can't even get the right golf course. That's very, very different. That's proper research, and we'll have you covered here on the Dojo as the election comes up in a few weeks from now. We'll sort of devote more of attention on that. On this week, I've had the best weekend. Sunday was the best day I've had this year betting. Best day, I've got to say that.
Soccer,
well. And I tell you the reason why
you guys were smashing it on the soccer, weren't you?
On absolute fire. The guys on Betting Weekly Euro Extra Time. Steve Wiss gave 4 out of 4 picks. It was a good weekend on the. Jack Wright gave some picks. I gave some winning picks as well, which was a rarity. And James Easton was showing a 40% ROI on the Extra Time as well. He was on fire as well. It was the best. It was my best day of the week. And so if you're not following us, if you come on this channel and you only want to watch Neil probably don't want to watch me or listen to me, but if you want to watch Neil, there are some very good young talent here on this Betting Weekly Studios who are giving winners left, right, and centre as well. And check out all the podcasts we have and our daily show, which is broadcast 11 o'clock Eastern time every day, giving the best bets for that particular day as well. So that's the sort of build up. What the subject is this week, we're going to talk about arbitrage and arbers. Now, this is a dirty word in the betting industry.
I noticed that. You pulled a funny face when you said it.
I know. But I don't mind it. But, we've been brought up. We've been brought up from the old school that arbors.
What do we need to explain to people what we mean by arbitrage and arbors?
Well, that's what I was just about to say. So if you're new to the American and you're betting, what an arbor is a person who makes a profit by placing bets on all possible outcomes of an event. This is called arbitrage betting or shore betting. Arbors place bets with multiple bookmakers and can profit regardless of the outcome. Now, this is something that has been frowned upon for many, many years in the UK market. There's a lot of people in Europe who this is what they do full time. A lot of people in the UK do it full time, but it's more and more difficult, which we'll come on to before. First thing I was supposed to say is, have you, in your career of gambling, if you've gone through some bad runs or some good runs, have you ever thought to yourself, I'll tell you what, I'll go arbing a little bit for a brief period of time, or you thought, no, I can make money myself on my own strategies?
Well, I've definitely thought about it in the past, and I've definitely done it in individual bets where I've thought, well, look at that. These two firms just have totally opposite views on this event, and I can bet with both of them and make a profit. I've definitely done that. But normally, and I guess we should go back to say, why is it frowned upon? Why do people care about it? A lot of people would say, well, what difference does it make to the bookmakers if I don't know, say we have a tennis match where one firm are quite strong one way, they make the favourite minus 200 with the dog at plus 150, and another firm think it's a lot closer and they've got the favourite at maybe, I don't know, minus 140. With the dog at plus 120. Now, in that situation, you could bet with one firm plus 150, bet with the other firm minus 140, and you've locked in a profit, whatever happens. Now, there's two reasons why that might be, and the most common reason is that one of the two firms has just made a mistake. They've typed something up wrong, or they forgot to change it. Maybe there's some weather or injury news that's affected the game, or maybe just weight of money has moved the price from where it was, and they just haven't noticed. And you might say, well, that's just tough luck them. You got to punish them, snooze, you lose. But of course, this is going to cause antagonism between you and this company if you keep betting with them only in those situations. So you can see how people can get upset about it. But then there's another situation that comes up where maybe it's a low liquidity market. Maybe it's early on. Maybe this tennis match doesn't happen for another 3 days. And the guys that are setting the odds for the two companies have both got strong opinions. And they think, well, we're not going to take too much money on this match. Once all the other books wake up and notice, they'll all fall my way because obviously, if you're an odds setter, you probably think you're right. You've done your homework. And so you have a strong opinion. I think depending on which kind of arbitrage, which kind of reason has caused the arbitrage, it slightly depends on how frowned upon it is. I don't know. I mean, when you were setting odds on tennis, you must have sometimes set a price that you knew was leaving an arbitrage with another firm, and presumably you did that because you felt like the other firm had just made a mistake.
Yes, and there's obviously the arbitrage is someone who's seen people can be accused of being an arbor if they take a price you see on a Monday and the price contracts on a Friday, and the bookmaker will just give the reason. Well, he's obviously an arbor because he's done it. Well, he's not. He's just picked you off on a value price. You can accuse him of being an arbor, which we'll come on to. He's a warm client. That's all he's done. He's not played the other side, even though the market's moved. He hasn't played the other side, so he's essentially not. He's not an arbor. But what he is, he's someone who's sort of mistaken and capitalised on your mistake. With me, from a trading perspective, the arbitrage situation used to really infuriate me because we were betting in a market that was very small at the time. So in terms of horse racing or football, the tennis market that I was responsible was very, very small at the time. And it was very, very hard to drum up business on that sport unless it was a Wimbledon or an Australian Open. But Wimbledon was our main 2 weeks of the year. So when you used to see a price, a fixed odd price that you thought that it's where I used to really make most of my money and make the company most of the money, was when I used to see a price where the bookmakers would have someone at minus 125 and the other guy would be plus 100. Well, I would be the other way around. I wanted to be with the dog at plus 100 and make him a minus 125. So I would. That's where I made most of the money for the company, by opposing favourites in tight matches where I thought that the other one should be the favourite. And what would happen? Before we used to start, there would be someone who go around with a sheet of paper and say you can have the arbors can have £20 of the arb price. And if they're non-arbors, we close it. And if they are, and that decision was taken most of the time away from you. It's just, if you were seen to take the money from an arbitrager, you were in a no-win situation, because if you won, the boss would turn around and say, "Well, you shouldn't have taken the money." If you lost, there was a big steward's inquiry, and you would be under pressure, and it'd be reflected in your bonus or whatever they did. And why did you take this money? You shouldn't do this money, because they was. I might think, well, you're paying me to make the odds. You should be backing me. What would happen would be there'd be 20 calls. The light's got all 20 calls for your arbitrage. You'd lay them down to 10, 20 pounds. You'd have a £200 position. You close the arb straight away. The market would come your way. And then right on the off, 20 minutes before the match had started, some big whale would come on and have £1,000 with the guy that you wanted to be with anyway. And suddenly you're £800
suddenly you lose money
because
on your strong opinion.
Suddenly you're losing, you're getting the mark that you wanted to be with. You're reading it completely right. Yeah. Because of restriction, and that happened numerous times.
Very frustrating.
So my argument was, well, lay them. If I laid 15 arbitrages and we won 11 of them, then I'm better than the other guy who's losing 11 and of his 4. So, but to do everything on, and there were sometimes when I think to myself, "Oh, I've made a rick there. I'm going to close that arb very quickly." But the ones I was confident about, we probably give money away. So my attitude
also,
to the arbors was, well, let them have a go. I can beat them.
In those illiquid markets, maybe 24 hours before the game, or maybe even further away than that. Nobody really knows what the right price is. Like, the arbitrage was formed because another guy similar to you, working for another company, had an opinion the other way. And it maybe was that he didn't really have much of an opinion. Maybe he just thought that his price was about right, but he wasn't really sure.
Or he's copied another set of prices.
Yeah, exactly. And often there is a lot of copying. But in answer to your question, have you ever considered playing arbitrages as a thing to do? Mostly the reason why I don't go out to do it is because of the personal emotive reaction that you get from people working in the firms. Like, you were obviously, visibly upset when it didn't work out for you. Like, first of all, if you just kind of, I don't know, maybe you put up a price and you were unaware of an injury and that caused an arbitrage and a load of people came on and played it, that just makes you upset. You're going to be upset. You didn't get it right. You didn't notice the injury. If it's that you had a strong opinion, but now you're suddenly hearing from all these people who only come on for a bet because it's an arbitrage, that's kind of also a bit annoying. All of this stuff brings emotion into it from the bookie's point of view, and it's all liable to just get your out shut down. You're just going to get your account shut, and it's just going to cause you grief. So basically, I always felt like if I had an account with a sort of what American people would probably call a squarish book, a retail bookmaker who offers prices on all kinds of things and aren't too sharp, I would value that account more than the amount that I could kind of steal out of the market on a few arbitrages. And I would think just playing it on the square, on the level, and just having kind of, inverted commas, normal bets, that account will be worth more to me. If you don't think that, and you're not a winning customer, or you're a kind of break-even guy, Well, yeah, arbitrage is it's risk free, so it must be a better thing to do. For me, it was never really better, but occasionally, yeah, you would just see something where you'd think, well, that one's just been there all day. This is obviously two firms that have a strong view, and I've got an account with both of them. I might as well just have it, free money.
I think the to point you made there about the value in account is a very good point as well. I've never ever played an arbitrage in my life ever. I've played a price that
Really?
could be an arbitrage. Never. I've never played never played two sides of market, Neil. If say for example there was a price where both markets were plus 110.
Mm.
I've played the 110 price, but I've never
That you
played the
thought
other
was wrong?
side. So I've played the 110. Yeah, I've played, but if it was 110 and a tennis match, I've taken the 110 or a snooker match or anything was one.
Mm.
I've taken one, but I've never ever gone and played the other side because
But it's a bit.
I get more satisfaction out of betting a winner rather than trading out.
But it's also a bit like what we were talking about a few weeks ago with, should you close out? Should you hit the cash out button? Should you hedge? To an extent, in that tennis match we were talking about, where one firm's minus 200 plus 150, and the other firm's minus 140 plus 120. Basically, it's going to be obvious. I mean, possibly when you see a bunch of other companies put their prices up, or maybe you look on an exchange, but it should be pretty obvious after a while which one of those firms has got the kind of market price and which one has got the standout price. And in the long run, if you just bet with the one that has the standout price, you're probably going to make more money in the long run. Really, it doesn't really matter what your opinion is. So if the minus 150 suddenly 8 other bookmakers go up and they're all minus 150 and the exchanges have minus 150, well, probably in that situation you should just go to the firm that has the minus 140, rather than do the arbitrage by playing minus 140 plus 150. I mean, that would be the way to do it, I think, these days. And then you're not playing both sides, and you're less likely to get marked down as an arbor. And in the long run, you're just taking the price that's wrong each time out of the two, rather than taking both of them. It's still just as dirty in lots of ways, because your account will be marked up as somebody who only ever plays when there's a standout price.
I think your account's going to get marked up whatever you do nowadays, unless you're playing £1, $2 bet builders. I think whatever you do now, you're going to get your card marked. If you walk into one, I could walk into bets before, and a guy could be injured after just completely random. I'm marked that he always gets injuries. It's the way the nature of the world is. I mean, the one thing you did say there about arbors. I mean, when there was an arb on any sport. I'm referring to tennis. Well, I talk about tennis quite a lot because it is the sport that I traded mostly. So we would have an arbitrage, and I used to pick up the telephone in the office, and there would be someone who'd come on every morning at 9:01 for the arbitrage, and it would be two women tennis players ranked in the top 130. And I would say to him, if you can name the two players' first names, I'll give you an extra point as well, and he can never name the two players' first names. But I think you should always play the customer. So when you talk about, walking into an injury, there were shrewd customers who knew stuff more than me. And if they come on, I would be much more wary of they and them a bet than an arbitrage that I had an opinion on anyway.
When we used to book bets back in the days, there was a guy that used to come on for the tennis. He's still around now. He's a nice old guy, very nice guy.
I know exactly who you're on about.
And, I won't reveal his full name, but we used to call him Liniment Lou because he knew all the injury news. He was very good on tennis injuries.
He was very good. But I mean, if he come on for a bet, you pay respect. But if a guy coming on arb and wanting to get with the player that you've offering out, I don't see any problem with it. And I
remember that what you said about the women's tennis and the names. We had a rugby one once where I remember I wasn't pricing up the rugby; somebody else had priced it up, and everybody was coming on to bet. I think it was might have been the British Lions, so it wasn't even like a big match particularly. They weren't like proper household names, And we'd had a bit of a guess at the price. Somebody else had had a bit of a guess at the price. We opened in the morning, and we're miles out from where they are. So I think we said we were going to lay the first 10 people that rung up, or give the price for the first 15 minutes, and then we'd close it up. But we'd sort of honour it for a while so as not to pee off our regular customers. And a bloke rung up, and I knew he was just an arbitrage player, and he wasn't very interested in rugby. I said to him, I'm going to give you a bet. I'll give you whatever you want, but you have to name in the next 20 seconds 3 of the players from the team. And he just put the phone down, didn't have a clue.
Well, I mean, they see it as free money, didn't they? And obviously, but I think sometimes, and it goes back to the point where you question yourself. And I think the companies we worked for at the time should have realised that the people they had doing those sports were so good and so clever, have gone on to make a lot of money gambling. They had so many good people there that to actually back them a little bit and made a bit more money rather than worry about their competitors or worry about this. And I think that goes back to the industry now. It's such a sad state of the industry now that there isn't any traders. There isn't people who, you don't have an expert on snooker in the office. You don't have an expert on tennis in the office. It's an algorithm that just goes on. And if you play on an ARB or a choice price, suddenly it's stopped, it's closed, it's restricted. And, bit of this human nature, and the idea of betting is that you know a little bit more than the gambler. You know a little bit more than him. So, you might know that some guy might have had a problem in his life or some issue. You want to take the wager on him, and that's the information. That is what gambling's all about.
What do you think about people who
gathering information
would be described as line trackers? They just sit there all day watching the screen, and the second it starts to change, I don't know, the Monday night football game goes from 3 to 3.5, and they just wait and wait and wait for that move, and then they dive to the last 2 firms who have still got the 3 that haven't noticed the move yet, and they get on. Are those people? I mean, is that a noble profession?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think the bookmakers should have enough team and enough people on the ball. I run a business here. I run this channel here. There's nothing that goes on in this channel which I'm involved in everything because it's my business, it's my livelihood. If you're a bookmaker, you need to make sure you're ahead of something. So if you're seeing the line moving, we've got all these kind of technology stuff that gives you a bleep every time there's an arbitrage. Now there's algorithms you can put on your computer. You need to know that line's moving, and you need to be moving as quick as the better. But the other thing I've got no problem with it is because I've followed lines before. I followed team news and team lines. We both work in the handicapping business. We put a bet out on a Tuesday or Wednesday. The guy who works for your firm, Betting Emporium, is very good on the lower levels. His price collapses very, very quickly because he's ahead of the game. But by match day, sometimes they drift even bigger than the price is anyway. So I think we have a knee-jerk reaction that we have to get on, and it could be bad weather in American play. There could be an injury or something like that. You look at the line move, and the line is that at that particular time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to continue to drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. At that particular time, he's got the value, but things can change very quickly. And line movements now in all sports, soccer, American football, everything, they're huge swings on daily. I go to bed at night sometimes on a Friday night betting a team for Saturday. They could be minus 110. I can wake up on Saturday morning, it could be plus 120.
Well, all of these markets,
at the moment,
of course,
especially in football,
all of these markets are now so dominated by huge syndicates. On the soccer particularly, there are 3 or 4 massive syndicates that are, just betting enough for, their bet represents the bet of 20,000 normal people just having a punt on the game. So yeah, the market can move one way, but those guys can't get on in the size they want to get on earlier in the week. So it's all just going to come down to the last, 10 minutes before kickoff. And in running as well, they play in running, so sometimes I remember there was one World Cup where the in running became a much bigger thing. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was now. It's probably about 12 years ago. There was a game, first round game between Germany and one of the African sides. And the biggest syndicate in the UK wanted to be on the underdog, and they just allowed the favourite to get the favourite was being backed in. They were a public side, Germany. They were kind of a 225 favourite or something like that. So they were kind of a 1-goal favourite, and the in running suddenly opened up, and the first 20 minutes of the game, like nothing much really happened in terms of like one team being totally on top, but just wave after wave after wave of money was coming for the dog. And we hadn't seen that in UK betting before. This particular syndicate, well, I mean, I'll say it was Star Lizard, the biggest syndicate. They had always been playing before the off, and suddenly they were waiting to play in running. I think it might have been Algeria was the team playing Germany. I can't remember now. Suddenly it was a new ball game because they would try and bluff the market by not really doing much before the kickoff, and then just going in very, very strong in running, allowing the kind of, because they were betting an underdog, they were allowing the public money to push the favourite in, and then going in and supersize in running. I mean, that's a whole thing that's changed these days, hasn't it, I suppose. But the other thing I was going to say to you about was, talking about sort of like shopping for prices and stuff. I just find it amazing when you think back. We've been doing this for, what is this, 11th show now? Like we quite often find myself reminiscing about the old days of betting. Well, it wasn't even really the old days, this one. So the internet became a thing, around about the millennium, didn't it? Really, it was kind of 99, 2000, 2001, and I suppose online gambling, uh, in terms of like the kind of sharpness of prices and things updating online in real time, that took a while to happen. It took a few years, but it was definitely happening before, by 2003, 2004. Exchanges had come in '99, but they really became a big thing in 2003, 2004. But we still used to have soccer coupons printed out that went around the betting shops, and they were delivered every Sunday with prices on the Monday night soccer game that was going to be on TV, the Tuesday and Wednesday, what's now the Champions League, and then on Thursday, what was then the UEFA League. That would be the main soccer, and the UEFA League, which was basically an international club competition around Europe for the teams that weren't good enough to be in the Champions League. That was the hardest one to price up. I mean, it was absolutely impossible. It was like the sixth place team in the UK would be against the second team in Belgium or something like that. How the hell does anyone know who's the best out of those two? Really hard to price up. There's no liquidity on the exchanges on the Sunday. And the betting companies would print a coupon on Sunday, having a bit of a guess at the prices and looking at a very illiquid exchange market to try and guide them. And then for some reason, they had this idea that they had to lay those bets and keep the coupon the same for the whole week. So you could wander into the betting shop on a Thursday morning and bet at the prices that was somebody's opinion with almost no information to go on a Sunday. By Thursday, we had injury news, team news, weather news. We'd seen what the rest of the market was doing. The exchanges had battered the price into shape. It was arbitrage city.
It was, and it was even better going in Thursday afternoon on those games, knowing that the match had already finished 3 hours ago. So
well, of course, that helped. That definitely helped.
That helped a little
crazy,
bit. But it's a bit similar to the
really?
sheets in Vegas, though.
Yeah, the parlay cards. So in Vegas, you would have a list of games would be printed out with kind of fixed prices on them. So the handicap would be fixed. So they'd probably, I don't know what, they'd print them out on kind of Tuesday or Wednesday for Sunday's games. And yeah, they just had to go on the prices that they thought they were then. They might sort of have a bit of a guess and say, well, this team on the board, we're -6, but we feel like by Sunday the public will want to bet this and it'll probably go off -6.5, -7. So for the card, we'll go 6.5. And they would do that. But of course, the key number was always 3. Then we didn't have the 2-point conversion in those days. And if you could find a game on the card where they had 2.5 on the card, But by the time you picked up the card on a Friday, the game had moved to 3. Wow, this was just free money, basically. They used to leave some games off the card, and it would say sometimes they'd make an announcement while you're in the casino saying, "Oh, game number 107 isn't available on the parlay cards or whatever," and you weren't allowed to fill one in, and also. A lot of the cards you had to do a minimum of 3 teams or 4 teams or whatever, but it was so easy to find a card with 3 numbers that were just out of whack. And this was 15 years after the internet had been a thing. When the whole bookmaking industry of Vegas was reliant on some guy making up the prices for a card on a Thursday. It's just ridiculous when you look back at it. Utterly stupid.
Good old days, only 15 days. People could just drive around London betting these coupons and getting all the value as well.
The UEFA Cup, I mean, what a great tournament that was. I used to love that. I never really had a car for the last kind of 30 years. I don't really believe in having a car if you don't need it. And I was in central London. But I used to get a lot of taxis around the place. And I remember one day I flagged down this taxi. And I said, "How free are you, mate? I might have a long job for you." And he said, "Well, I'm not really doing anything." So I said, "Well, have you got 2 hours to drive me?" He said, "Well, what are you on about?" I told him I want to go in 28 betting shops around South London. And I think I'd been in 8 shops. And he said to me, "What the hell are you actually doing?" And I told him I was betting, 2 sides that I've never even heard of before to win in the UEFA. And, he couldn't believe it. I think we got to the 12th shop.
Yeah, Hedrick split.
We got to the 12th shop and he gave me 200 quid and said, "Can you put it on for me?"
Did it win?
It did win. It did win. Yes. We weren't that well.
That's why you shouldn't have
after.
Just one thing before we wrap up a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say I had to get my bike out the next week to go and collect it all.
I know a guy who was probably one of the biggest arbers in the 90s and 80s, and he's made a small fortune, mate, playing arbitrage. He had teams up and down the country. He used to have people going on airplanes up to one end of the country, people in the other end, and he would just be playing. And he played a lot on the different each way markets, the place markets on horses. When the exchange came out, the 3 places where he could lay the 3 places have a win. He was way ahead of his time, and he made an awful lot of money. And he said to me that he was massively in front on the shops. So. But on the exchange, on one part of his arbitrage, he was probably one of the biggest losers on the exchange. So my logic was, why didn't you use the exchange to your benefit
100%.
and just bet what you had rather than laying it back? And he said, well, he just couldn't have it because if it turned the other way, he wouldn't be able to live for himself. It behoves me to answer the question because he lives in a beautiful, massive, great big house, fleets of cars, racehorses, done really, really well for himself. But that was his logic. He said, well, if it turned the other way, I wouldn't be able to live for myself. But I thought, if you've got the information here, the market is, the exchange market is way ahead of the market here. Why don't you just use that to bet rather than pay the arbitrage? And he didn't. But the one thing I would say, that was back in like sort of 80s and 90s when he was doing this, and maybe even the early 2000s. But is it possible now for people to make money? We talked about people can't even go in a shop and have £50 there. Is it possible to make money out of arbitrage and make a career out of it, make a living out of it?
Well, you started talking about that guy, and I was wondering if it was the same guy I was thinking of. But my friend that was doing it, I mean, he probably stopped doing it about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, partly because a lot of the stuff in the UK, if you're going to play an arb, you need the anonymity. Because of what I said about accounts getting closed, it's quite hard to be an arbitrager using online betting accounts because it's so easy for them to notice that you're doing it. And the systems are much sharper these days on picking up on that kind of thing. But of course, if you're going into bookie shops, going into betting shops in the high street and having a bet, you can be a little bit more anonymous. And I had this friend who he'd done it for about, 6 or 7 years. The one firm in the UK, Ladbrokes, one of the real old-fashioned bookmaking companies in the UK, and not such a big force in betting anymore, but used to be one of the biggest bookmakers in the world. They had a kind of a promotion card, like a loyalty card, And if you went into a shop and you gave your name and filled in a form, you'd get this card, and it gave you certain privileges, and you could get little lost leaders on your bets. And there was one thing you could, and you get points. Every time you had a bet, you would earn points. So there was one thing that you could spend the points on, which he worked out was the best thing, which was that you could up it to the next price. So if you were betting a horse at 4-1, if you spent 100 points on your card, you could get it at 9-2. So but actually they didn't do it on horses that short. It was mostly on horses that were, if it was 20-1, you could have 25-1. If it was 16-1, you could have 20-1. If it was 14-1, you could have 16. And the shortest price you could do it on was if it was 5-1, you could have 11-2. And the maximum bet was £100, and you had to pay up some points to do it. So what he would do is he would hang around right near the off, wait for horses to start crashing into 9-2. And as he saw the price crashing on the exchanges into 9-2, he'd whip up to the counter, and he'd already have his ticket written out, £100 to win. And he would say, that's 5-1. Can I have the 11-2? There's my card for the points. And they'd mark him up. So he was constantly getting 11-2, 5.5-1, about horses that were going off 9-2, 4.5-1. He won somewhere in the region of 800 grand out of the betting shops doing that. And he hedged it all online to make it into an arbitrage. And he lost somewhere in the region of 600 grand to the exchanges, which is kind of crazy, really. And I said exactly the same thing to him. Why'd you do that? Also, the other thing was you had to earn the points. You only got the points by doing turnover. You know, every time you had a bet, you earned some points. So I said, well, how do you get enough points to keep doing these bets? He said, well, every now and then I just have like 30 grand on a football bet at minus 300 or something like that. I was like, this doesn't sound like a totally risk-free operation. He was like, no, I find ones where I can do the arb on the exchanges where minus 300 is just sticking out a little bit. Or maybe I have to sweat the first 3 minutes of the game and then I can play an arb on it. Terrible. I mean, what a life. You can see why people go bald early with this betting.
Yeah, well, this is someone who's never played an arb, let alone do it. But I mean, I can't see how people can make money out of it anymore. I think they can. I think they can, like, you know, look at the lines, look at the movement, be ahead of the market, read a lot of internet stuff, see the price is going to be, and be on value price. You know, take a couple of ticks out of the market. But I don't believe now within you know.
But don't you think also whether you can or whether you can't,
spotted arbitrage people can make it.
But isn't the real thing that if you're smart enough to win on arbitrage, you're probably smart enough to win kind of straight, really, aren't you?
Yeah. But all you're doing is following the markets and realising that what their price is going to go and it's going to contract. And if you can read the market, then you're going to get enough value in your favour over a period of time where you're going to beat the market. So that's one of the reasons why I've never done it, because I think if you're going to read where the market's going, you can see where the money's coming, you can line tracking.
You're going to be a winner.
If you've got that edge, and you're going to be a winner. So, and you're giving away too much margin, I feel, on the other side that you're essentially giving back. I just don't get it. I've been accused of being an arbor probably 50 times. You know, we're not. I've gone to betting shops. It's an arb. This price is an arb. I don't think anyone in them betting shops knows what the word means, and I think it's a very easy excuse for someone to be labelled as an arbitrager just because they happen to fall into a market move or some trader discrepancy where they've made a price rick or they've done something wrong themselves. I think it's very easy to be called an arbors. But finally, I'm going to say something controversial. Are arbors useful to bookmakers? Are they of use to the bookies?
I think they should be. I mean, you know me. I mean, I'm an old traditionalist. You know, slightly my opinion is that bookmakers should do price research. You know, they work on the price beforehand, try and come up with the correct price. But then also, once they've priced it up, they should learn from the way the market's moving. So if I'm the odds setter and I put up a price, especially if I'm doing something that's a bit illiquid, like a tennis game 24 hours before it starts, or, you know, the sumo or something like that, where I'm not really taking many bets, and the bets are quite small, I might not be very confident of my prices. I'm certainly not going to be as confident as the guy that's doing the NFL or the Premier League, because it's harder to price up, and I'm not going to see so much action. So if I get somebody that comes on who's an arbor, well, that's information to me, isn't it? It probably tells me that someone else has priced up and there's a difference of opinion, which I might not have realised. Maybe there's a firm, in Asia or somewhere else, in another part of the world that I haven't really investigated. And if I see an arbitrage player coming on, I can learn from that, and it can knock my price into shape. And I am a bit sort of old school like that. I do kind of think that bookmakers should take a bet and move the price, take a bet and move the price, take a bet and move the price, rather than just this idea that you just stick up a price, lay it. If anyone clever wins, they're frozen out forever. Shut the account, restrict it, and you just want to never move a price, but just take on essentially whale money and mug money.
Yep, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the amount of times that you probably have it many more times than me. You go on to place a bet. You want, I don't know, 500 quid, $700, something like that on the market that we would place. You're restricted to $30, $40, and then 3 hours later the price is exactly the same.
That happened to me this weekend.
Someone who makes, you're got someone who makes a living out of gambling. He wants to bet a price with you. He's saying it's a risk. He's more or less he's paying you no respect. I think that the market should react to the fact that you're trying to bet something with him, because all you're going to do is get someone else to use an account to get on the price, or someone else, and to not move the market on the back of someone shrewd is ridiculous. What happened this weekend?
I've got an account with a company. They're not UK based, but they're kind of well known in the UK, and they spend money on advertising in the UK. Somehow I've got an account in my own name, and I can get the odd bet on. I seem to be able to occasionally get £100 on under/over player yardages in the NFL. This weekend, every time I go to have a £100 bet, it says you can have £14, which you can take now, and the other 86 will go to referral. Now, in the past, when that's happened, the referral comes back and it's about 50-50 whether they take it or not. This weekend, I just got £14. I think I did 4 bets with them. They give me £14 on all 4, and the 86 was no, we don't want it. But in all 4 cases, the price was still there 3 hours later. I mean, so what are they gaining? They're spending all this time messing about deciding whether or not to lay me. They obviously feel like they respect my opinion, but they don't respect it enough to change their price. Just seems stupid.
Yeah, very stupid. Respect the judge. Always bet the person. I think always bet the person and the price. I think the person coming on the other phone, you've got to pay respect to the person. If he's a good judge, you move markets. Very similar to the Las Vegas strategy. If you go to the casinos in Las Vegas, they come on the big guys come in and they move the market on the back of the money coming in, and they use, that's what bookmaking is all about. It's strange, it's in a different way, but arbors for me, I don't think they're as big a problem as the industry accepts. I think you need to be confident of the prices you're laying. I think you should have confidence in yourself. Restrict them by all means, but sometimes if you're a bookmaker and you don't lay those arbors, or you don't take the money, the bets from the arbors, then all of a sudden a big whale comes on and skewers the whole thing, and you could be cheering against what you want to be in the first place. Okay, that's it for the week. Thank you very much.
Say, though. Sorry. If anyone wants to put in the comments, I'd be interested to hear other people's opinions, because I know some people think, I hear people often sort of describe arbors in real derogatory terms. And also, if there's any bookmakers listening, do you think arbors are good for the industry or bad for the industry, or is there a place in the industry for arbors? I'll be interested to hear other people's opinions on this one.
I think we've just been brought up to think that it's just a dirty thing, it's a bad thing to do. But I think there's a lot of laziness from the bookies nowadays. I tell you what, when I was trading, you'd be very, very hard to find an arb, because I would monitor all the other firms and I would close them before anyone saw them. So, I just think it's a bit of laziness. And, if someone's coming on and betting at a price you're happy to lay, whether it's an arb or not, you should be happy to lay that bet. Obviously, restrict them in size, but accommodate them in some kind of bet. And if someone shrewd comes on and has a bet, You've got to pay respect and move the market on the back of the Shrewdies. You can't have it sitting there for 3 or 4 hours late, because that Shrewdie will ask other people who aren't marked to get the bet on, and you haven't learned anything. You've laid the bet in 4 or 5 different people's names. So it's crazy. Old school bookmaking is the way to go, and this new fangled way is never going to last. And if you are arbing now, you're going to find it very, very difficult. Neil, before we go, what have everyone got to do? What have the joiners got to do?
Well, this is it. I did notice last week that the number of likes went down. They just didn't like us last week, Nigel. I don't know. Was that you?
No.
Did you do something?
I think so. I think it's always me when it's a downward spiral. It's always you when it's an upward curve. I can assure you that.
Lots of people watched the show, but they didn't press like. How can you not press like? I mean, it's just like, just put your finger on the thing. Well, not really, your mouse, basically. Click like. It can't hurt you. It doesn't cost anything. And obviously, if you want to make sure you don't miss an episode of the Dojo, well, some people say hit subscribe, but we say do join us. So don't forget to join us. Press the subscribe button. It's free to subscribe, and it means that more people get to see these videos, and that's good for everybody.
Not only do you get to see 2 grumpy old betting veterans like me and Neil talking about the good old days and why the game's gone, you also have some really good tips as well. As I said, this weekend was my best weekend of the year so far, following the guys on Betting Weekly Extra Time and Betting Weekly Premier League, and those shows will drop on Thursday. We also have Betting Weekly Game Bet Match with Sean Calver, who's hitting a bit of form at the end of the season, and also Betting Weekly WTA with Rory Jawani, with the WTA Tour Championships approaching very fast. And also Monday to Friday, every day at 11 o'clock Eastern time, we will have the Betting Weekly Live, where one of the handicapping team will join one of our presenters and run down that day's play, that day's action, the best bets for the day, and also where the market is moving across at the Bet Rivers trading room. And as we said in this week, you've got to follow the money. Follow that money, see where that market moves. You don't have to play an arbitrage. You'll be one step ahead, and it'll take you closer to being a more successful gambler. Make sure you download this podcast, Betting Weekly Dojo. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios. As Neil said, do join us. And also, finally, follow us on our socials at Because We Win on Twitter and Instagram. Neil, thank you very much. Are you going to be in the same place, same time next week, or are we at the same time?
Here for a few weeks now. Yeah, here for a few weeks. Hopefully, the sun's coming out now. I can see it coming in the window.
Sun's coming out. Better. Look at that. There you go.
Down the beach.
That's it for this week. Please leave your comments below. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know your opinions of Arbors. And if you've got any things you want us to discuss, any subjects that you would like us to talk about here on the Dojo, we're happy to hear from you. We have some questions, but we've run out of time. I'll save the questions for next week. But if you've got any questions for myself or Neil, please put them in the comment box as well, and we'll answer them next week. Have a good week. Good luck with your bets. Cash some tickets, and we'll speak to you all again very soon.